What go on, everybody, yo? Thank y'all for tuning in again, man. Gullah Grill TV. We're gonna talk about these orders of these internet Indians, indigenous to the key causing. Absolutely, man. So thank y'all for tuning in. Back at it again. For sure. Again, shout out to all the usual suspects. Show Monte, what's happening, bro? Leaky. Courtney, Bo, Jalen, you know what I'm saying? Juju, what's up with you? Yo, Vaasa, what's happening? Ogun, you know what I'm saying? Not a coincidence. Everybody that come in and whatnot, I always show love. Chris MVP Harris, what's up to you, bro? Each one teach one. Massey Warrior Clan. And the Susie King Taylor house. Shout out Savannah, Georgia, man. What's happening, bro? You know? So yeah, today we're gonna go over these orders of the internet Indians. You feel me? So it's these talking points that they be using. I'm gonna sit here and show y'all without a shadow of a doubt. You feel me? That these talking points that they be using is white supremacy, the pseudo, the archaeology, the history, all of that. You know, we gonna talk about where it come from. And if we get time, because I do gotta work in the morning, and I'm already starting late too, which ain't nobody's fault. You know what I'm saying? But we get to, I'm gonna play a video from each one, teach one too, that just give some more context on it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, here we go. Y'all go ahead and get y'all libations ready, you know, however you do, you know, smoke one, pull one, whatever the case may be. And enjoy this journey we're going to take with each other, you feel me? Gullah Grill TV. Make sure y'all share, like, you know, only way we going to grow. Only way we going to grow. So as we see, I'm going to start off right here. Pseudo-archaeology. Pseudo-archaeology, also known as alternative archaeology, fringe archaeology, fantastic archaeology, cult archaeology, and spooky archaeology, is the interpretation of the past by people who are not professional archaeologists and who reject or ignore the accepted data, gathering, and analytical methods of the discipline. The pseudoscientific interpretations involve the use of artifacts, sites, or materials to construct scientifically insustainable theories to strengthen the pseudo-archaeologist's claims. Methods include exaggeration of evidence, dramatic or romanticized conclusions, use of fallacy, and fabrication of evidence, right? Lack of scientific method. You're going to continuously hear me use the word methodology, whether it be historical methodology, research methodology, the scientific method, right? I want to go to something specific. Very, very specific right here. Nationalist movements. Pseudo-archaeology can be motivated by nationalism, Nazi archaeology, using cultural superiority to the ancient Aryan race as a basic assumption to establish the Germanic people as the descendants of the original Aryan master race, right? In many cases, conclusion is established and field work is performed explicitly to corroborate the theory in detail. According to archaeologist John Hoops, writing for the magazine of the Society for American Archaeology, pseudo-archaeology actively promotes myths that are routinely used in the service of white supremacy. Again, one of the archaeologists, his name is John Hoops again, he writes for the magazine of the Society for American Archaeology. Pseudo-archaeology actively promotes myths that are routinely used in the evidence of white supremacy, racialized nationalism, colonialism, and the dispossession and oppression of indigenous peoples. What are we saying here? What I've always been saying. Pseudo-archaeology and pseudo-history, they use talking points and claims and whatnot that racists use, i.e., erasing the people who've always been here, the First Nations, indigenous, whatever you want to call it, right? They're erasing their histories and culture vulture and inserting their self in that history, and at the same time disrespecting the African history as well, right? So you have people like me, not a coincidence, the whole entire Massey Warrior Clan, each one teach one, you know what I mean? That's putting in this work on the African American, what we went through on the West African side as well. You know what I mean? which is why, because we're battling these people. And it's crazy because I started out doing this stuff, and it was more Buckra saying these talking points, and then now it's more people who look like me saying these talking points. But at the same time, the job ain't done. Gotta keep going, regardless of the opponent. So what I'm saying, it is what it is. So yeah, that's one. Here's another one I want to share with y'all people doing. Pseudo-history. Pseudo-history is a form of pseudo-scholarship that attempts to distort or misrepresent the historical record, often by employing methods resembling those used in scholarly historical research. The related term crypto-history is applied to pseudo-history derived from the superstitions intrinsic to occultism, and that word we're definitely going to get into today. Pseudo-history is related to pseudoscience and pseudo-archaeology. We just went over pseudo-archaeology, right? Promoting racism, white nationalism, facts. And usage of the terms may occasionally overlap. Although pseudo-history comes in many forms, scholars have identified many features that tend to be common in pseudo-historical works. One example in the use of pseudo-history is almost always motivated by a contemporary political, religious, or personal agenda. So what political, religious, or personal agenda or agendas are being portrayed here in this internet Indian indigenous to the keyboard movement that they got going on social media? Well, let's see. Are they not anti-reparations? Okay. Because within the argument itself, that's why white folk were using this shit. No. Certain people have always been here. They didn't come here, therefore that stuff didn't happen. All right, cool. And that's just one small fringe white nationalist group, as we know, right? What else do we got? So that's the political stuff, right? Religious stuff. What should they say that voodoo've always been here? Different stuff like that. We can get into that if you want to. But the personal agenda, that's the main one. I feel like the main one that it might as well. And it is close with the political, but the personal agenda is the main one. It's a lot of self-hate. It's a lot of misinformation. A lot of, again, pseudo-history and pseudo-archaeology, right? And they promote this stuff because I guess for them it's a feel-good story. They didn't have to go through the mouth of the people was never slaves because they think that's so bad and whatnot because they don't know the richness of what West Africa actually had and has. The most resources, 3 great empires, which no other place can say that. You feel me? Jump right into the Iron Age. You feel me? You got people saying that the Africans who came over here in 1619 are white people. That's how crazy this stuff is. You feel what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. A common feature of pseudo-history is an underlying premise that there is a conspiracy among scholars to promote so-called mainstream history over true history, an assertion commonly corroborated by elaborate conspiracy theories. Works of pseudo-history often point exclusively to unreliable sources, including myths, legends, often treated as literal historical truth to support the thesis being promoted, while ignoring valid sources that contradict it. Sometimes a work of pseudo-history will adopt a position in historical relativism, insisting that there is really no such thing as historical truth and that any hypothesis is just as good as any other. Many works of pseudo-history conflate mere possibility with actuality, assuming that if something could have happened, then it did. And that's a common, and that's just a huge flaw that we have to deal with because we deal with a lot of denialism, confirmation bias, appeal to authority. It's just we deal with a plethora of logical fallacies. If you can type in logical fallacies, and you can have your way with that. Literally, you can go through and we deal with all of those. Every single group, person, whatever the case I may stated earlier, that's promoting and talking about African and African American history. We deal with these weirdos and these internet Indians, and we go through a lot of logical fallacies with these people. Notable examples of pseudo-history include British Israelism, the lost cause of the Confederacy, the Irish slave myth, and as you see, that's clicked already. The witch cult, Amerindian genocide denial, Holocaust denial, slave trade denial. I added that one, slave trade denial, right? And yeah, just a lot of these pseudo historical things. These are the main common ones. Main common ones, right? That Irish slave myth, though. Ooh, I'll briefly talk about it real quick. Pseudo historical is a fringe pseudo historical narrative that conflates the penal transportation and indentured servitude of Irish people during the 17th and 18th centuries with the hereditary chattel slavery experienced by the forebears of the African diaspora. Go over that one more time. The Irish slave myth is a fringe pseudo-historical narrative that conflates the penal transportation and indentured servitude of Irish people during the 17th and 18th centuries. So when Irish people came over here, 17th century, one book I can easily talk about that I have, White Cargo, they compare that to the chattel slavery of the Alpha. Not the same. The hereditary chattel slavery that the West Central Africans went through, and also those also came through in other parts of Africa as well. The small percentage, we're not going to exclude that either, but majority West Central Africa, the stuff that they went through, the forebears of the African diaspora, is not the same as what them buckram went through. Not at all. We have laws that can state that and everything. Show a clear distinction, a complete separate thing going on. Not the same. Have used as false equivalency to deny racism against African Americans or claim that African Americans are too vocal in seeking justice and historical grievances. Okay, so again, the political part of the political agenda of this Indian movement I mentioned earlier was they're trying to downplay the reparations movement. What did I just read, right? Claim that the African Americans are too vocal in seeking justice for historical grievances. Right? Denying racism. Right? Who says these things? Buckra, Nazi Klan members. It also can hide the facts around Irish involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. The myth has been in circulation since the late 1990s and has been disseminated in online memes and social media debates. Right? According to historians Jerome S. Handler and Matthew C. Riley, it is misleading, if not erroneous, to apply the term slave, which they like to call Slav, to Irish and other indentured servants in the early Barbados. In 2016, academics and Irish historians wrote to condemn them. You even have Irish historians who wrote to condemn the myth. These are some of the talking points that the book used. But with these internet Indians, they're trying to make these Irish people black. And it's sad. But yeah, pseudo history, pseudo archaeology. And I mean, look, they want to, and they were going to get into terms like swarthy and everything, right? And I know somebody's going to talk junk about me using wiki, but that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I got something with that as well. No lie. But yeah, so I'm going to check the chat real quick before I keep it moving. Peace, Mel. Peace, Barry. What's up to you? Cuban, what's up? Chris Harris, what's happening, man? Talking about these internet Indians, man. These are indigenous to the keyboard. You know what I mean? That's Rob Bourne called them. Shout out to the big homie. Shout out to each one, teach one. So if y'all missed it, went over pseudo archaeology and pseudo history, how they're both intertwined with racism, white nationalism. Irish slave myth included in that. Talking about Africans didn't come over. The whole denial of the transatlantic slave trade. You know what I mean? And hijacking of the First Nations people's culture. Absolutely. So yeah, well, I got you out here. You know, that's the thing I want to do. Come on, computer. Not let me present. What's going on? Oh man, but yeah, yo, I got this book I want to share with y'all. With me, man. Bear with me, bear with me. Again, shout out to Monte on the beat, man. That's Monte in the background, y'all. Invented knowledge,
Hey Monte, what you say?
false history, fake science, and pseudo religions. Y'all just remind me. I'll throw the link to the Gullah Geechee Discord in the chat. All these books I be showing on all the different channels I visit and whatnot. I mean, low key, I got a lot of information, man. I got a lot of information. I got a lot of information. But yeah, here we go. First off, what we talking about in here? Atlantis, mother of pseudo history. Who's on first? Pseudo history of the discovery and settlement of ancient America. And I'm gonna get right to it. I'm gonna get right to it. hmm Who's on first? The pseudo history of the discovery and settlement of ancient America. Y'all get this book. Y'all come to chapter two. You feel me? One thing we see very often, the Kinderbeck man, we must see the meme and everything. We're very familiar with that, right? We're gonna get into how all this stuff is pseudo. A lot of this. I'm not gonna deal with Kinderbeck man too much because they don't really. I've heard it before, but there's some specific stuff I really want to get into. But if y'all want, again, as you see, page 63 in the text, if you get the PDF, 65 right here. Don't be confused, right? But yeah, oh shit. Many early professional anthropologists engaged in collecting activities of a dubious moral and ethical nature. Even the great Franz Boas, renowned for his humane and sensitive approach to the study of anthropology, participated in bone collecting. The Native Americans had become outraged by these bone collecting practices. Many of them viewed it an insult to their religious beliefs, which required the respectful treatment of their ancestors' bones, lest the wrath of the vengeful spirits of the dead be aroused. Others simply considered it disrespectful of their humanity. As a result, Native Americans and their supporters have worked hard to get the Native Americans Graves Protection and Reparations Act enacted in 1990. The new law required that Native American skeletons be returned to the appropriate tribes for reburial. Mhm. And it is going over how, right here in this specific part, this actual methodology, who was involved as far as the actual digging what. Mhm. But there's something I really specifically want to get. Oh yeah, man, the Clovis period. That's another talking point. That's what that's actual legit history, and it goes about that. But right here, let me see. Okay, right. There are hundreds of other theories proposing various individuals from the old world who reached and even settled the Americas before him being Columbus. Ancient Egyptians,
Hey Monte, what you say?
Phoenician traders, wandering Greeks, fleeing Trojans, shipwrecked Romans, Buddhist missionaries, Chinese refugees, martyring Mongols, medieval Arabs, and Mandingo merchants from Africa. are just some of the many groups and individuals who supposedly beat Columbus to the Americas. The first and second editions of pre-Columbian contact with the Americas across the oceans and annotated bibliography compiled by John L. Sorensen and Martin H. Rush between them list over 6,000 items dealing with that topic, and they do not claim to be exhaustive. Furthermore, new writings about pre-Columbian visitors continue to appear since the second edition of the bibliography was published in 1996. Mainstream archaeologists and historians usually consider such works to be suspect and in many cases just plain ridiculous. Now, what did I just read, y'all? What did I just read to y'all? I went over pseudo-history and pseudo-archaeology. What do the pseudos and the abos and the indigenous to the keyboard people do? They reject the mainstream data collected. What do they call it? It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. That's what they say. Are we not reading that here as well? Check this out, right? Now, there's a person Maddox Forge. You can see about it if you get this. But again, join the Gullah Discord. The books will be in for free to PDF. You don't charge for free books, you know what I mean? But remember, I stated these talking points, the pseudo history and the pseudo archaeology, are promoted by who? Racist, white supremacists, right? So check this. Okay, there's this thing that's Maddox Forge, right? Inspired by such writings, the Virginia Cavalier chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, at the urging of the forceful amateur historian and curator of Fort Morgan, Hatchet Chandler got involved in the Malcolm in 1953 by a marker commemorating the Welsh Prince's supposed landing at the site of Fort Morgan in Mobile Bay, Alabama. Is there not this bucker going around here right now named Florida? Please don't check his channel out. Don't get confused. This bucker isn't. He already has like us pushing this joint anyway. Right there. He's their big company. He's where they get their information from. Welsh coming through. He's saying that the Welsh are the Indians, bro. Red hair, pale skin Indians from Welsh was already here. That's what this job talking about. That's what this job is talking about, right, bro. And who's pushing it? The Daughters of the American Revolution, the Virginia Cavalier chapter. It's right here, man. I'm not gonna cap to y'all, bro. I'm not gonna cap to y'all, man. 1953, bro. 1953, bro. This shit's crazy. And you got these people who look like us pushing this joint, yo. And pushing him. That's crazy. And again, to tell y'all, it stems from racism, white supremacy. The Daughters of the American Revolution, bro. No different from the Daughters of the damn Confederacy. And both organizations are in Richmond, Virginia. One right beside the damn Virginia of Richmond, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Facts, bro. Right there on Broad Street, man. What we got right here? In the 20th century, theories about pre-Columbian explorers from sub-Saharan Africa have arisen and found a greedy audience among African Americans. Similar theories about ancient Egyptians have been around for much longer. According to most writers on the subject, the two main periods for African visits to the Americas between 1492 occurred during the Olmec era in Mexico, 1500 to 300 BC, and during the 14th and 15th century, i.e. Mesoamerica. Right? The African visitors to the Olmecs were supposedly the inspiration of the great Stonehenge known by the archaeological name of baby faces. White diffusionist writers such as James Bailey and Constance Irving assumed that black Africans came to the Americas as slaves or mercenaries of the Phoenicians, the blacks, Abos however, continues in his writings that the blacks were ancient Nubians who had conquered Egypt and ruled it as the 25th dynasty from 750 to 650 BC. They came to Mexico as the leaders of the expeditions, which included Egyptians and Phoenicians. Once in Mexico, the Nubians managed to make themselves part of the Olmec ruling elite. The 14th and 15th century visits involved the Mandingo and Songhai peoples of West Africa, visiting the medieval Americas for trade and colonialization. The Harvard professor of Slavic languages Leo Wiener pioneered this theory in the early 1920s, and then Sertima revived it in 1976. The one thing I have been known for saying at least 4 or 5 years, because each one teach one put me on to him about 6, 7 years ago. Leo Wiener. Nowadays, people are familiar with me saying he's the Abo Daddy. Why do I call him the Abo Daddy? As we just read, he pioneered this thought process as far as the whole talking point. These Africans came over here with the Phoenicians or whatever in the ancient Egypt, whatnot, and the Mali and Songhai people came over here with it, depending on which period. And they're the Olmecs. And nowadays we got these memes floating around. Shannon Sharp, they put Shannon Sharp up against some dude from Mexico, and they talking about we the same with the noses and everything. Not playing in, like not knowing, but some of them do know, because I think some of them is real life COINTELPRO at this point. But knowingly or rather unknowing, do lookership, which is rooted in racism, race supremacy. That's how this dude Leo Wiener did it. He went down into Central South America. Oh, big noses, broad lips. I mean, big lips, broad noses. Oh, those are some niggas. Them African traits. Boom, boom, boom. And that's how that went. Not having any kind of cultural information, just plain lookership, bro. It's trash. And you got people, like you just read, African Americans, who picked this shit up. We ain't African. We been here. We always here. We the Olmecs. We the Aztecs. We the Incas. We the Cherokee, Choctaw, Blackfeet, all that. You feel me? Like, make it make sense, bro. This stuff is sad. Leo Wiener, the Abo Daddy. Old War Florida, the new school Abo Daddy. With the Welsh Indians. I just showed y'all where that came from. Fuck out of here, bro. Evidence for these African visits comes from several sources. One is the transfer of African plants to the Americas or vice versa. Tobacco, cotton, and maize have been cited as evidence for such transatlantic contacts, but have been discredited as genuine pre-Columbian transfers. Again, but have been discredited as genuine pre-Columbian transfers. The evolution of cotton does seem to prove that cotton took place between the Old World and the Americas, but that contact took the form of seeds drifted from the Old World to the Americas in the distant past rather than humans carrying the cotton plants on their voyages. Certainly the chronology, I'm tripping, y'all. Certainly the chronology of domestic cotton and corn grown in the Old World and the Americas does not support the existence of African contacts with the pre-Columbian America. Suppose the Negroid skeletal remains of pre-Columbian provenance are also not widely accepted as genuine or convincing evidence. Races are not that distinct skeletally. The pre-Columbian Negro skeletons may simply be Native American skeletons. Again, craniometry, the study of measuring the skulls. The pseudo is outdated. It stems from racism, white supremacy. Again, measuring the skulls to see who is pseudo and outdated, bro. Terms like Negroid, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, all parts of racism, white supremacy. Scientific racism. Facts, bro. Can't get around it. Shout out to Dr. Cobb, COBB, a black man who beat up racism, scientific racism. Again, Dr. Cobb, bro, COBB. The purported representations of Negroid people in pre-Columbian statues and pictures may actually be just the depiction of Native Americans with seemingly Negroid features. It also may be some artistic convention that is not yet understood. With that being said, right, we want to bring up Columbus, right? If you read Columbus's voyages, right, which we'll go over one day, the Columbus voyage, right? It talks about how they paint themselves black, right? They paint themselves black. If it was already black, they wouldn't have to paint themselves black. Clearly, it was a skin contrast that they was trying to go for some kind of the art, like we just read. You feel me? It's cultural art. They painted themselves black. Hair like a horse's tail, like the ponytails and whatnot. You feel me? Like they reference Columbus, but they don't read. They reference Van Cernema, but they don't know nothing about Leo Weiner. Why? Because they don't go through the sources. Because you'll see Leo Weiner, Harvard professor. Many people at that time used him. Why? Because at a time in the early 1900s, where you're at pretty much the height of Jim Crow and the scientific racism going on, black people are inferior and can't do this, can't do that. Savages. I just played the video last one. Oh, they got some gypsy in their blood. That's all they know. That's just what they do. That wasn't the first time we heard of that stuff. This stuff been going on. So if you get a scholar at Harvard, and at the same time, mind you, the methodology used today was not the same compared to back then. So if you got a Harvard professor saying that black folks been here and they did some, and they actually showing some greatness and some achievements and whatnot, yes, you're gonna ride with it. You're going to, and that's what people did. You feel me? But now, hindsight stand on their shoulders and pushing forward. The whole Sankofa, knowing where you going, or where you've been through to know what you got to do and where what you can do. Like, you realize that we don't got to make nothing up. You don't have to make anything up. 3 great empires: Mali, Ghana, Songhai. Well, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. I go on like that. We got the Nok culture, N-O-K. You feel me? Ironworking. And people say that West Africa was inhabited and whatnot. And people been there for at least 300 to 500,000 years ago. The evidence is out. And the genome been mapped as well. So we know where these people came from and we know where we come from. You feel me? So this thing is crazy, bro. And as you see, it's gonna go into the griots and the lack thereof of evidence to support certain claims and whatnot as far as this voyage that we're speaking of. The story of our Abu Bakari II is based on oral traditions passed on by West African griots, who specialize in learning and narrating the oral history of their people. Research has shown that the griot's historical narrative is often accurate, even remarkably accurate, although not invariably so. Many questions exist concerning the historicity of Abu Bakari's voyage. First, was Abu Bakari even a Mansa of Mali? That is by no means certain. Second, why was his fleet so suspiciously large? 2,000 ships, even if there were dugout canoes or reed boats with crews of only 4 to 10 people, it is still a very large expedition to sail off into the unknown. It does not ring true. So when we study these different places in West Africa and whatnot, and if you really follow the page, go to the community page, there's a book, Medieval Empires of West Africa. It goes over Abu Bakari, goes over Samusu, but also goes over the culture. Like we just said, the canoes, the boats, which you also see in the Gullah Geechee corridor, right? It's part of the culture, bro. We brought our culture with us, man. You feel me? Boats and whatnot, you can see. These large, vast fleets that they're talking about, you don't see in West Africa. You don't. And then people try to spin the whole narrative. You trying to say we had the knowledge too, we too slow to go everywhere in the world, bro. That's not what we're saying. It's just what need is there to leave when everything you need is right there? Who has the most resources? Why was the Buckra so ready to goddamn jump tail and do all this extra stuff? Because they had droughts and Irish potato famine and all this extra shit. You feel me? They waking up struggling every day, eating people and like talking about cannibals and Caribs and whatnot, but all that stuff is projection. You feel me? But I don't want to get all blackity black and all that stuff because that's the lead to some pseudo stuff. But we just give with the information. You feel me? But yeah. Supporters of African voyages to pre-Columbian America, such as Ivan Van Sertima, claim that many such voyages were made, but even the legends of Abubakar belie that contention. Instead, to Abubakar and his people, the West African Atlantic was a great mystery. There was no memory of previous African voyages to guide them. That does not seem credible. If so many earlier voyages took place, it would appear that the story of Abubakar probably has less basis in historical events than the fictional travels of Sir John Mandeville during the European Middle Ages. Right? Just going into the pyramids and stuff. But yeah, man, like, this stuff is beat up, bro. Stuff is beat up, man. Some scholars have suggested that it was Raleigh actual and elaborate practical joke on his friend, the archaeologist, and suggested that Gladwin supporters did not. From the mid-1970s to the 1980s, Barry failed. Please remember that name, Barry Fell. He goes along with Clyde Winters. He goes along with Leo Weiner, a retired marine biologist from Harvard University, another one, had waded into the field of bizarre archaeological theories with a series of books that suggest that the ancient Celts, Egyptians, Phoenicians, Libyans, and Hebrews all visited and settled in North America in the centuries prior to the birth of Christ. His theory primarily relies on supposed inscriptions that Vail and his supporters claim to find in profusion all across the eastern U.S., Professional archaeologists and geologists, however, do not consider the inscriptions to be man-made, let alone readable. Instead, they present evidence to show that their supposed inscriptions are merely scratches on rocks produced by glaciation. My fault, y'all. Excuse the geeky, but it is what it is. Glaciation, erosion, and weathering. They also point out Fell's propensity to cite solid evidence, such well-known archaeological frauds as the Davenport tablets. Such flawed scholarship did not prevent Fell's books from outselling more reputable works by mainstream scholars, nor does it prevent television shows as Terra X and In Search of from citing him as an expert. Wow. A status professional archaeologist indignantly deny him. He is hardly on. So here, let's add to the list. Not even that. We're going to do another recap, right? Pseudo-archaeology, pseudo-history. What's it rooted and stemmed in? Racism, white nationalism, right? What agendas do they push? Religion, political, and personal, right? In what ways is this political as far as this internet Indian stuff? They deny the claim for reparations, right? How is it personal? Feel-good stories. Point blank. Get to the root of it. Feel-good stories. Not having to deal with the fact that your people went through slavery. Nothing more, nothing less. You feel me? A whole bunch of self-hate type drive. What people have pushed this type of information? Leo Weiner, Barry Fell. We haven't seen Clyde Winters yet, but he's definitely one. And sad to say, Ivan Van Sertima. And there's more. Definitely more. Let's see. What's this? Book of Mormon. Oh yeah, that creep. I don't even think they're ready for that. I think it was some Hebrew job now. Yeah, as far as the Native Americans being Hebrews, yeah, this is where I put this name. So I'm not gonna do that. Hopefully, people you know, they're this advanced. This might be a better paper. Yeah, and this book is a body bag. If I wanted to, I could be the Demorse out this book. As you see, that was the beginning of Hebrew y'all taught. Oh yeah, Plato's Atlantis. So Plato, mother of pseudo history. Mm, mm, mm. Mother of pseudo history. Check this out, right? Another difference between history and pseudo history is the nature of debates and disagreements among the players on the intellectual and pseudo intellectual stages. Ah, check this out. Historians debate one another on a different plane than the background venue for debates between historians and pseudo historians. Damn, damn. Hmm. Historians certainly have their disagreements over interpretation. Sometimes it can be uh, acrimonious, but almost always the basic facts are not in dispute. The basic facts are not in dispute. Historians agree that a man named Henry VIII, was the king of England from 1509 to 1547. They agree about the main events or achievements of his reign. When they enter into the debate, they disagree over the significance or consequences on the quality of those events or achievements. On the other plane, historical debates focus on basic facts. Did certain events occur or not occur? Did some persons exist or not exist? Or did particular individuals or groups live or not live? Facts, bro. Like, check it. I ain't gonna hold y'all. The other day, I got into it and got out, and not out my character, but it is what it is. I showed my ass on my brother channel because he trying to discredit the validity in the life of Denmark VC, same as they do with Harriet Tubman. So, and we have to show and prove the most basic of basic things. Again, they say that the transatlantic slave trade never happened. With all the documentation, narratives, and everything, that's what we're out here doing. Debating the most basic stuff. It's always a teaching moment with people, right? Always a teaching moment. Like, and they say the most ridiculous, weird, and disrespectful things. And then at the same time, the people look at the people giving the information as like not human. They were robots. Not supposed to get in our bag about certain shit. And it's like, what? You know? Because at a certain time, it's like, bro, if you want to hear information a certain way, you come kick it. Do you even have it? For real, do you even have it? But that's another thing. Never mind. But yeah. So. Let's see what I should got there. Man, I'm not gonna hold y'all too long. You're talking about that man, it's Plato and that weird stuff, man. I think I remember a specific page if I recall correctly. Yeah. Another thing we hear about Lemuria and Mu. This lost continent of the Pacific quickly attracted the attention of pseudo-historians and occultists. Remember I said we're gonna see that word again when I was on the wiki? Occultists? Here we are. We sometimes call it Mu instead of Lemuria. Atlantis frequently cites the work of Alexander Winchell, one of the leading geologists of late 19th century America. Winchell tried mightily to harmonize Christian theology with Darwinian evolution, for a time had some success. Again, Winchell, Alexander Winchell, 19th century American geologist, right? He tried mightily to harmonize Christian theology with Darwinian evolution, and for a time had some success. At Advances in science rendered his theories untenable, and he is now largely forgotten. But in 1882, he was a thoroughly respectable source for Donnelly to use. So again, the information gets updated, Joe, and stuff get pushed to the side. File 13, trash and garbage, basura. You feel me? It flam, it fool up. You feel me? It took out to 3, 4 different languages. Back show. So yeah, man. Like people was using that dude, Lumeria, Moo, and that shit old and outdated. And Abos still hanging on to this stuff. It's been beat up for hundreds of years at this point. It's 2023. This stuff came out in 1882, and they still trying to kick it, bro. Come on, man. Come on. How slow? Like we're making us look bad out here as black people, man. Check this, right? I ain't gonna keep it too much. Post-Civil War America had an avid interest in spiritualism, and one of the more interested Americans was Colonel Henry Steele Occult, an expert on agriculture, a Civil War veteran, and one of the men appointed to investigate the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. When the war ended, he became a lawyer of modest success. It was, however, a come down from the excitement. Let me get to the point. I ain't trying to bore the people with this book or history, but it's for a reason, I promise you. Spiritualism was a common interest that brought Occult, who was the Civil War veteran slash decent lawyer at best, and who? Blavatsky. Who's Blavatsky? Madame Blavatsky. Together for the first time at the Eddy Farm in Chittenden, Vermont, October 14, 1874. All right. Where the members of the Eddy family had been exhibiting psychic powers. They went on a pseudo field trip, bro. You hear me? Post-Civil War, spiritualism, occultism, jive, pseudo field trip in Vermont, bro. Eddy brothers. You hear me? We're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it going. What I got next? What I got next? The relatively in opposition provided by a problem eventually Columbus was fired from dishonesty. They got their revenge on pushing. Oh yeah. So these Columbus brothers, they published a letter from Madame Blavatsky that purported to show how they had colluded together to fake their pursuit to the letters from masters. Oh yeah, so Blavatsky got caught up in this scandal with these. Oh, she was trying to say she was getting this information from these masters of Egypt and India and whatnot, and she forged some letters. Yeah, but I really don't know if y'all interested in that, and I ain't trying to bore y'all to death. Really. That Blavatsky is like, if Leo Wiener's the daddy of the Abos, she they mama. She the mammy. She the mammy. Madame Blavatsky is they mammy. They suck at the teat of Madame Blavatsky, just how Romulus and Remus sucked at the teat of that she-wolf. No exaggeration. All facts. Again, Madame Blavatsky is the Abo mammy. Alright? They suck at her teat, like how Romulus and Remus sucked at the teat of that Roman she-wolf. Right? Or Greek she-wolf. Whatever. She was in this scandal. Colonel Occult, the guy she met on that pseudo psychic field trip in Vermont, took her to Germany, 1885, in an attempt to get her out of the glare of that scandal. She used a forced leisure to write her other massive work, the 2-volume Secret Doctrine, which presented a series of far-fetched ideas unsupported by any reliable historical or scientific research. It was published in 1888. This graphs her first volume as Cosmos Genesis, how the universe has evolved, in the second volume, Anthropology, how humanity has evolved. A whole bunch of pseudo. Here we go. Lumerian sub races. A whole bunch of weirdo shit. A bunch of pseudo stuff, man. That's the album movie, yo. Leo Wiener, they daddy. She the mammy. Real, bro. They love Atlantis. They love Liberia. Whole bunch of weird shit, bro. And I am trying to chill with the cussing. Oh yeah, here we go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey Monte, what'd you say?
Theosophy taught the existence of the Akashic records, which listed and cataloged everything that had occurred since the beginning of the universe. They are stored in ether or space known to Hinduism and Buddhism as the fifth element, or Akasha. Pseudo, 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 pseudo. Sorry, pseudo. Yeah, man. What's up, everybody? Oh shit, what's going on, man? Man, look, I was on here, man. Musa was at Monte, my brother was at the man. That shit was beat, man. Ah, big up Juicy Fruit. My also was at man. Brother Barry, we're going, man. We're going. Before I go to phase three of this presentation, a little bit I got going on tonight. I'm gonna try to see what I got going on. See if you want to come up, add on, ask a question. I don't know when y'all got here. I was over there reading and whatnot in the books on the show. But yeah, what's happening, man? What's up with y'all? Been agreeing for a little minute. You know, hope y'all got y'all libations and everything. Hope everybody doing all right. A little vibe working. Peace to you, brother. Yeah, you, yeah, man. So far, we do a recap. Clubhouse, we get a recap. Now that's what's happening, bro. If you're just not getting in, I showed and proved. I do again. Here we go. So you always know I'm talking about this pseudo archaeology and pseudo history, right? I went over the definition, um, how people use it. Feel me specifically? Oh yeah, the lack of methodology, right? Lack of scientific method. They want to neglect the scientific method. The conspiracy theory. I mean, this nationalism, right? Pseudo archaeology actively promotes myths that are routinely used in the service of white supremacy, racialized nationalism, colonialism, and the dispossession and oppression of indigenous peoples. You feel me? And I came over to the Irish slave myth by a pseudo history. Yeah, I mean, over the definition of that, talking about how people use this for history for political, religious, and personal agenda, political being. What the fuck, I'm putting it in as an example, it would be reparations, as you know. Like, yo, you got your front line with me. You dude up. You feel me? Battling the information, holding it down for African history, for African ancestors. You know? And you're native as well too. Whoever got the best history as well. You know what I'm saying? He a real freeman. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that real quick. Went over this book. Invented knowledge, false history, fake books, fake science, and pseudo religions, bro. Goddamn, I went over how I ended it with Blavatsky, how that's the Avo mammy, and they suck at the teat of her, like how Romulus and Remus suck at the teat of that she wolf. You know what I'm saying? Went over Leo Wiener, that's
Monte,
they
what'd you
pappy.
say?
Went over how Ben Surnam, I got it from him. Went over Barry Phil. There was another one named Winchell who they try to use. I would also even went over how the Hebrews were like the Native Americans as always here. I even threw jabs at not even jabs. I dead ass knocked out Old World Florida with the Welsh Indians. I showed that as well too with the red hair, pale skin Indians he be trying to kick nowadays too. That's nothing new. That shit been out. It been beat up hundreds of years ago. You feel me? What was it? 1882. I feel like I forget. Yeah, went over that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. I vibe in the chat. See what's going on real quick. Oh shit. going on, man? All right, peace to you, brother.
What's good, black man? I can't stay that long, I'm at work, but I had to be respectful and say peace to you, peace to your audience.
Appreciate you, bro. What's your thoughts so far while we get here?
And
On an hour. What you think so far?
I only been here maybe the past 5 minutes.
Damn.
You know what I mean? So I ain't get to hear too much to give a commentary. But you know what my sentiments are with them. They don't deserve no attention. I mean, thanks for bringing out accurate information and clearing it up for people. But them cats don't deserve no life in my world, in our world for that matter. That's just how I feel about it. They leeching. That's just my honest opinion, bro. I think they leeching. And the more grapes we give them, they just manipulate it. You know that.
Yes, sir.
So my thing is this is the type of people you beat with silence. I hate to compare it to a bad relationship, but just stop feeding it. Let the shit go and move on. They'll die out on their own. What they say? They'll die on their own sources, as we keep seeing. Let them fade away. But as long as we give them attention, put it like this: you ain't never gonna see no scrubs play against the Bulls, G. That don't happen. They don't get to bless that court. And we gotta stop opening it up, the arena, to let them be on the court. They don't deserve to be there. But you keep doing your thing. You know what I mean? Before I get too far off onto that one. I ain't mean to take away from your bill by no means. But
Isn't that all? I appreciate you. Be back to your support every time. It's a real one, brother. I appreciate you. They lucky with you. You's a whole problem out here, bro. You's a whole problem. So yeah, I don't sleep on you. I know how you give it up. What kind of information you got to provide to the team and everything, whether it be in the background, out front, it don't matter, bro. Yeah, if I stay strapped with them sources. Fact.
yeah, and I just can't give that kind of energy right now. I got too much going on in the personal world doing my daddy stuff, bro. Remodeling bathrooms, working, and then just dealing with autism in itself. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna deal with somebody autistic, I'd rather it be my son than them weirdos.
I feel you broke a second, right? One thing that I have noticed as far as people who give the real information about African / or just African American or both, one or the other, it don't matter, right? Because everybody got their own lanes and they do certain things, right? So I get it. But one thing I see a pattern of is the ones that's kicking the accurate information. One thing they have in common is they always talk about or try to promote good character. You feel what I'm saying? They know with that flam stuff or the real stuff. It's real life stuff going on. So yeah, you might hear babies in the background, old lady in the background, or whatever the case. Somebody doing dishes or somebody doing some hair or whatever. In real life, we out here like we not robots, nothing like that. You feel me? But like, yeah, I feel that, bro. I feel that.
And what you just said, that's the whole point. Not to take from true historians' plate, but how many times have we talked about the stereotype and tied it in with the blackface? The whole idea of us demonstrating that character and intelligence level was to kill those stereotypes. So when we put ourselves in the ruckus, it just makes them say, "Ha, look at them. They ain't never gonna change." You get where I'm going? We bringing the ghetto into scholarship, and that ain't supposed to happen. That's why I don't like that platform, that one particular platform at all anymore. Especially if they just doing it for a couple of tokens. That's not helping nobody. That's backwards ass hustling. It's piggyback hustling. And to be honest, it's bitch made hustling because you just found another product that you can't really get in trouble for. Let me poison their minds. Let me make that the new drug. Let me make this attention the new drug. You get where I'm going? But I can't catch no case for this. So nah, I don't give them no light, bro. None.
When you watch the replay, you gonna really appreciate. You gonna really what you just said go hit even harder, bro. Because in the book I went over, it talked about the real historical debates. Certain things are debated. Certain facts are debated. It gave an example of King Henry VIII, right? Hit the time period, certain things he did are debated. The importance, the impact, or different shit like that, that's what's debated, right? But with us, we got to debate if the fucking Bible even happened. You know what I'm saying? They even called it in the book and referred to it as like this back alley type debate type shit, right? And, and it's true, bro. Like I ain't gonna hold you. Even if I partake in the shit, right? It's fucking true. That's why I be getting in my bag, and that's why I even like you know, I used to be going off on people, bro. Now I put myself and I move a certain and I said I move a certain way where I try to not even go about that route. You know what I'm saying? I was talking about the whole good character thing. You gonna hear Pops talk about good character. You gonna hear Cruz talk about some mature shit, some stand up shit. You feel me? Where I'm born, and you know what I mean. Not a coincidence. You in the same type time as well. You feel me? And other than that, I don't be rocking with dudes like that because they are home and then be out to like, myself a small nigga. You feel me? Yeah, man.
What your buddy say? Oregano versus Endo?
That way.
You get what I mean? I'm trying to speak to you, to you at the moment. But that's what it is, bro. And a big part of that is we actually care. So we hold this stuff sacred. We hold our ancestors and our living brethren and sisters sacred. Our identity is sacred to us, and we know what's at stake, so we don't mess around with it. That warrior spirit, I told you from day one, I see you, bro. But don't waste your time with these idiots because they ain't about that life. You know what I mean? This is them Negroes that will start popping off shit when the police is right behind you and you don't know it. And as soon as you swing, you the one catching the case.
You right.
This is the type of people we dealing with. You said it earlier in one of the chats. You don't like people who throw rocks and hide their hands, bro.
You see me, bro? Oh
These
shit.
is octopuses throwing boulders.
Damn. You seen that, bro?
So just keep that in mind. Now the cleaning up, yeah, I'm all for it. But the more attention we give them, the more that we say their names, the more we say Abos, it takes away from us learning what a beautiful story we actually got to tell. I mean, to keep it all a dollar, you one of the ones that could be introducing so many people in our community to Mid Journey and this AI art stuff right now. Because you took it and took flight with it. And there's still so many people that don't know that. You know what I mean?
I feel you, bro. Nah, you right, bro. You right. Nah, you right in the exact, dog. You right in the exact, fam. Like, no cap. You right, bro. You right. Dead ass, man. I appreciate it, homie. Real. I'll let it breathe for a little minute. We about to.
I kind of extended my break. I'm going to jump off of here. Keep doing your thing, bro. And you know I'm always going to tune in and support the best ways I can, bro. And peace to the audience once again. Because,
Appreciate
you
you.
know, I had that moment. So, you know, I'm most definitely coming to at least shake hands with you.
I appreciate you, homie. You already know you always welcome on the post, bro. But yeah, when you watch this replay, you gonna love it, bro. Promise you, dog. I promise you. Watch all the way to the end too. Don't even skip because like, I'm gonna throw it in a little surprise for you at the end, just because you said something. Word up.
All right. Well, if I got to raise my Friedman finger, that means you most definitely got to raise that Gullah finger at him. I'm going to
Yo,
keep it funky.
you already know I'm getting.
All right, bro.
Yes,
Keep that
sir.
smile on, keep kicking ass. Um, Try not to let them get under your skin and just keep teaching people the right way, bro.
Yeah, we good. I was doing that one little weirdo. I gotta ignore from now on, but it is what it is. I ain't gonna worry about it no more.
ultimate gift and the curse. Unfortunately,
All right, cool. So what we watching right here, right? Each one teach one, them the big homies. Make sure you go subscribe, support them brothers, man. I don't even know how old this video. Streamed 2 years ago. 2 years ago. The joint old. Damn, classic facts, right? So, boom, the origin of black pseudo consciousness with complete proof, right? I'm gonna let him get his diatribe on at the beginning, and when he get to the info, y'all gonna see why it's relevant to Gullah Geechee. Y'all gonna see why it's relevant to black people. And yeah, we in here. I already did my presentation. You know what I'm saying? I did my thing. Right now, we're just gonna watch this for a little minute. I'm gonna play it to a certain part.
For those who may have started taking this journey within the technological era, if you will, as far as the internet is concerned, you may have been inundated with a lot of information with no filter or guide for you to succinctly disseminate what is real and what is pure garbage. And for people who have lost their history, lost their way, and are looking for shining lights and something that seems dark and perilous, these things seem good. You see yourself other than being bit by dogs or on the bottom of a slave vessel. And for people who don't know who they are, we're speaking to youth because it takes time and access and exposure to find out these things. It's a life journey. But those just taking those first steps and they decide to click on and become inundated with so much frivolous garbage, but due to your lack and the community's lack of knowing who they are, you gravitate toward it and say, yes, this is who I am. So you begin to play dress up in fantasy. And before you know it, you're sucked into a whirlwind of pseudo garbage. Because now it is presented to you in a quick fashion, where in 60-second doses, you can digest something that elders have taken years and years to study to try to disseminate to us. So we sit in 2020 and all we see is Black people who have joined the fraternity of everything but African. And all we see is those who know they're African decide to take out a black paintbrush and paint the whole world in that color as a sign of power, although inaccurate. And this is what is taking place. And we can encapsulate that for how we start this over the past 20 years alone in the internet. Now, I want everybody before we start to take into account the things you've heard, seen, and what have you on Facebook, on Twitter, on Pinterest, on Instagram, on all of your social media, on YouTube, and your path to you get some knowledge yourself. The shiny things along the way, it says it's like a carnival. Hey, you're this. Hey, you're that. Everything but African is the name of the carnival that my people are at. So, Rabon and Asad Seneb been trying to tell you for years. They've been asking me for years. So we will begin with volume 1. Peace, Ivan. And this is no specific order as far as a volume. I have the list of all of the players and characters. Some of us were around for a long time in this. Nothing to brag about. It's just life and the nature of how things go. But stop talking and get to it. So I want to thank those who joined. You see the Cash App on the screen. I ask you to support. For the length of this video, I will take it down to ensure that people can see the presentation fully and put it up at the end. And I ask those, if you support and are down for real information and giving you the facts and giving you something that is passed down in the tradition of the names that people throw around like it means nothing, whether it be a John Henrik Clark, an Arturo Schomburg, a Dr. Ben, a Harlem History Club, or whoever you want to name. Put the information on this channel up and see if it goes in line with those elders say, and then go search around everywhere else and see if it's in line from what the elders said. This presentation will begin now. I like all those who, whoa, am I sharing my screen first of all? I tried to be all with the series for now. We have a gentleman right here named Reverend Paul Mark Washington. And he can definitely take the name of the Black Power preacher. Let's begin this mission. Reverend Paul Mark Washington was born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1921. He was also a graduate of Lincoln.
Born where? Charleston, South Carolina, 1921. The Black Power preacher. Y'all see what I'm saying? We gonna get to it though.
University and Philadelphia Divinity School.
Big up.
He was pastor of Church of the Crucifixion in South Philly. In 1947, Reverend Washington married and moved to Liberia. He was business manager and president of Cuttington College, educating African leaders. He moved back to Philadelphia in 1954 due to his son Mark's issues with malaria.
What we got? Reverend Paul Mark Washington, a Gullah man, Charleston, South Carolina, 1921. Moved to Philly, big up Philly, 215 with a Muso, a Kimba, Black. We know Bo got that Philly connection well. You already know. So yeah, Philly and the culture rock with each other. You already know that. So yeah, went to Liberia, got married, had a kid over there, came back to Philly in 1954. Right? Because why? His son had issues with malaria. We gonna get into it. Let's keep it moving.
He became vicar of St. Cyprian's in Philadelphia. Mark Johnson, as we can see from the initial page, has done a lot. He did great things in America and in Liberia so far. That is Reverend Mark Johnson in Philadelphia. Reverend Paul Mark Johnson, one of the key leaders of the Black Power movement. He hosted the third national.
He must have, I don't know, but Paul Mark Washington.
Black Power Conference in 1968. In 1970, Huey P. Newton spoke at Washington's Church of the Advocate in Philadelphia. He hosted rallies for Angela Davis Defense Fund. He served on the MOVE Commission. Those who are familiar with Philadelphia know what the MOVE incident was. Reverend Paul Mark Washington built over 400 units of affordable housing for Black folks in the city of Philadelphia. What you see to the left is the flyer, the program for the national conference, the Black Power.
Let's not skip my fault, but yo, y'all really need to know who this brother was. Reverend Paul Mark Washington, this Gullah man, Charleston, Chucktown, Corridor, 1921. Moved to Philly, big up Philly, 215. Went to Liberia, got married, had a baby over there, came back to Philly, 54. The Black Power preacher, right? Huey Newton, shout out to the Panthers, man. You already know how I'm giving it up. Shout out to the Panthers, man. Huey Newton spoke at the man church, right? Rallies for Angela Davis. He wasn't your average pastor you may think about. When you think of a pastor or a preacher, y'all may not think of this type right here. The Black Power preacher, the Gullah man. Put some respect on him, man.
Power conference that took place in Philadelphia, hosted by Reverend Paul Mark Washington in 1968, a scholar and a Black Power fighter. Reverend Paul Mark Washington had a son. His name is Paul Mark Washington. We saw that Reverend Paul Mark Washington had a son in Liberia who had to come home, and this is why they came home, because his son was suffering from Liberia. This is the son of Reverend Mark Washington. Mark Washington Jr., we'll call him. 1 second. Mark Washington Jr. was an amateur researcher and historian. Please give me 1 second before we go further. All right. Amateur researcher and historian. The son of the Black Power preacher. Let's read a little bit about Mark Washington Johnson. He writes this in 2008. Please allow me to introduce myself in the old world. Hold on, folks. I saw that this thing is on the screen, and I said that I would take it off. So let me do just that, so it's not a distraction, because I like people to really see what we're doing and what's going on. So let's go back. All right. I apologize if that was inconvenience to anybody. I'll put it back up afterwards. Please allow me to introduce myself in the old world. Anu Thread, Ishtar said, I think it would be a good start if you could come on to the guest book section and properly introduce yourself. I'm Mark Washington, born in Liberia, of Episcopal Church missionary parents from the States. After too many bouts with malaria, we returned to Philadelphia when I was 5. Having lived in New York for 10 years, and after meeting my Hungarian wife-to-be, moved to Budapest for a 6-month visit that has extended to well over a decade. Our meeting was charming, as though I am Afro-American. She said it was not until after we had been together for 3 days that she realized that I was Black. She was oblivious to the color in me. We adopted 2 girls here. At one point, I became interested in understanding how we got here and started writing a book called The First 3 Seconds back in the early 90s. A number of major publishers were interested in it, but I never felt the work was complete, and it evolved into the second book of Genesis, the universe as a scientific project. Starting with the Big Bang, it shadowed the book of Genesis, beginning with the word, okay, my adaptation, followed by the creation of the heavens, the earth, the life, the human beings, language, and civilization. Somehow there'd be a chapter or so for each, and a number of international scientists found favor with the early manuscripts, and so forth and so on. So we have started with Reverend Paul Mark Washington and his great work in the Black Power community, and he had a son who grew up in that world. His name is Paul Mark Washington, who married a Hungarian woman who didn't realize, according to him, he was Black until 3 days after their encounter. He goes on to marry this Hungarian woman, as stated, and they adopt 2 girls, the son of the Black Power preacher. His own words. Paul Mark Washington, lookership and phenotypes. This is also Paul Mark Washington's words. Hi, I'm Mark Washington and was born in Liberia, West Africa, to Paul and Christine Washington, so we know we're talking about the same person as we go forward, serving as missionaries with the Episcopal Church. Because Africa is my birthplace, I harbor an abiding connection to our motherland and feel a personal responsibility to participate along with other independent researchers over the course of time who have worked to redress the efforts historians have made, please consider the evidence, to hide the role Africa and Africans played in creating civilization and claiming it for themselves. The term African, sometimes Negro is appropriate, is used here, omitting color as it produces so many arguments. to mean those who usually have, so not always, wiry to woolly hair, a full nose and mouth, and when there are only skulls tens of thousands of years old or older to go on. Sound familiar so far? Africans
Honestly, do it sound familiar so far? Real shit. Do it sound familiar so far? Lookership, skulls. If I didn't show it, I at least said it, and I show it if I need to. Just let me know. Craniometry is outdated and pseudo, a tool of scientific racism. I gave the black doctor, Dr. Cobb, who beat up scientific racism. Yeah, skulls and all that shit. That shit outdated, bro. Negroid, Mongoloid, Caucasoid, outdated.
typically have a head longer than it is wide, and so forth and so on. Historians portray Africans as only living within Africa, with a history beginning only with slavery. They leave out well known truths including the Africanization of Europe over 1.7 million years ago. It says, I have introduced a new method of presentation called mega documentation, or 60-second lessons on a single page. I have introduced. Welcome to the birth. Buckle up and light up. Mark Washington introduces something that comes in line with how social media starts. I'll give you one clue, and how information is presented to a younger audience who doesn't read books but will take this new method of presentation called mega documentation, or 60-second lessons on a single page. There, information is presented in a relaxing picture storybook from with minimal text and as many as 40 rare historical images.
Is this not sounding like the grandparent of a damn TikTok or a reel or a YouTube story or an Instagram story? Like, is it not? Less text, more pictures, memes, all this lookership shit. We gonna get to it.
From nearly as many individual sources. Though destitute and divided today, Africans worldwide share a rich common heritage, and ancient and modern populations worldwide are one people. Africans everywhere should be proud about the fact. The purpose of this site is to let this be known. Okay, we will start here. His intention was that, but his mega documentation and his efforts are based on phenotypes. Foundation, let's move forward. You ever seen these pictures? Let's see what Mark Washington Johnson contributed to the world you have seen and are aware of. Have you ever seen or heard Africans and Aborigines and this whole thing going back and forth, folks? That is from 2008 and earlier of Mark Washington Johnson, and mega documentation is the reason you have seen these things. I'll read the legend. It says, reminiscent of the work of Roland Dixon of Harvard's Peabody Museum regarding pre-Clovier migrations from the Pacific and yada yada. I'm not going through this all. We got a lot. Some of you have seen this image before. This one right here shows someone in a headdress, as well as this one as well, and connecting them to Australians. Mark Washington Johnson himself told you he was based on lookership and phenotype. Let's see more. You ever seen these pictures? This is the Mayan by phenotype. In his own words, he's telling you his process is lookership. How do they look? This is his methodology. Mayan by phenotype African. This is the part some people choose to leave out. Musicians of Bonampak. How many times have people online seen this connection to Bonampak and black faces? 600 to 900 AD, blowing trumpets of the same type as, once again, he puts it to be sure people understand, by phenotype is what he's going by. Africans in Nigeria, New Guinea, and Australia. Connecting these people by phenotype to understand. As you can see at the bottom, folks, this is what Mark Washington, once this goes away, did September 22nd, 2009, for those who wanted a specific date, 11 years ago. And it enters the online space. How about this one? Peruvian Africans was what he said, but he went by, once again, phenotype. Says if the Negro or African is characterized by a combination of the rounded nose and full facial features, then we can see pre-Inca, pre-Columbian statuary from 4100 BC to 400 AD in Peru are African, based on phenotype. Africans would have arrived earlier as the Spanish would many millennia later. There is pre-Columbian, as you see, by transatlantic currents, right? I'm reading from right here. The pre-Inca resembled the sun of South Africa, connecting American peoples to African peoples via phenotype and lookership. He's telling you himself. It is this population which made the America's oldest temples. Many people in 2020, 11 years later, this one was published on February 21st, 2009, 24th, 2009, who want to know when it actually hit the internet. Yes, I have dates too. You entered into the world of online February 24th, 2009. That's when you got it. So by the time Instagram, Facebook, and all stuff really got blown up, these images had already been circulating online. This theory, this notion is coming from Paul Mark Washington, and those in the know knew why he was doing it, because he told you it was based on lookership and phenotype. His connections of Australians and Native Americans and Africans and Chinese, and we'll see more. Says those who would become the Spanish conquistadors first entered Spain from the north without ships or history of seafaring. It was the black Moors of Spain whose ships and intercontinental maritime knowledge of seafaring, I believe, which is what Italy's Columbus and the conquistadors of Spain put to their own purpose, converting the Moorish trading fleets in those countries into armadas. He said, I believe. Let's see if he has others. The Olmec has this particular image, although it appears in J.A. Rogers' book, started floating on the internet because of Paul Mark Washington.
He mentioned another scholar, J.A. Rogers. Again, earlier I mentioned Ivan Van Sertima used who? Leo Wiener, Leowiner. Also, in the book I showed earlier, Slavic linguist, Harvard professor, 1920s. People used his work when he went down to these Central and South America, saw these Olmec heads, and said, "Oh, big noses, big lips. Those are some niggas."
Washington. Lookership and phenotypes. Have you ever seen this image? The one with Muhammad Ali and Olmec heads and Mayans together? It's from Paul Mark Washington, is why you saw it on the internet. The title of this is The Phenotype Non-Resemblance Between Olmec and Mayans. They were going back and forth. We may get to that later. The legend says the features of the Africans, as in the Olmec. Right here, it says it. And as in the Afro-American, which was Muhammad Ali, African-American, the Mesoamerican, the Mayan. On the origins of the Olmec in 1832, Rafinez noted the similarities between the Mayan glyphs and the Libeco-Berber writing, and Leo Wiener was the first researcher to recognize the resemblances between the Manding writing and the symbols in the Tuxia statuette, which was proven false, by the way. In addition, Harold Lawrence and yada, yada, yada. But the point is, you have seen this on social media for a number of years. I'm telling you how it got there, who put it there, and the origin and why. He is one of, like I said in the beginning of this, at least 10 people that I have. This is only volume 1. If the people begin to wake up, there'll be no need for any more. If not, I'll burn it all down. Mayans. Let me read this because the print may be too small. Have you seen this picture around? People have been using that as icons and avatars? Yes. It says historical Mayan / African. Once again, he says here, where the mouse is going, by phenotype. Monarchs of North America. Who or what is African? Geographically, those who didn't migrate to, but were born in and live in Africa, whose ancestry there dates back millions of years. Physically, Africans are those one can argue, except the exceptions abound, who have some combination of full facial features and or woolly, wiry hair. How many times have someone pointed to you in an online conversation telling you to look at their hair or their features in regards to these images that you're seeing? That is the ideology and mind of Paul Mark Washington, who told you his was based on lookership and phenotype. This post is a part of the series of identifying by name the Mayan monarchs of African phenotype. Has anyone ever tried to point out to you the Mayan black kings in the kings list? Here it is. This is what you're looking at. Pronouncing all those names and stuff, this is it. Let's see what else was attributed. This, by the way, those who want to know, met the internet on December 20th, 2008, for those who want to keep track. Ever seen this? Bonham Park, Chiapas, Mexico, the Mayan kings who were black? Paul Mark Washington. Bonham Park's murals, their polychrome, were all commissioned by Chan Muan II, as this fresco was polychrome in Muan's era, the only polychrome era of Bonham Park. The king seated on leopard skin must be Chan Muan. All assumptions. The look is an assumption even based on lookership and phenotypes. He's telling you himself. Mark Washington, this post hit the internet December 12th, 2008. Let's see what else he may have done. Have you ever heard of Queen Khalifa? And people telling you the story of Queen Khalifa, the mother of California, this African or black queen, Negro, some may use. Where'd that come from? It came from the internet, although some people said it before, but you saw it and heard about it, and it became news and proliferated all for Paul Mark Washington. Let's see if this sounds familiar. California named after 15th century African Queen Khalifa. By saying she was African means not necessarily birthplace, but by descent and facial features, being full-nosed and mouth with a tendency to woolly, wiry hair. The various legends of Khalifa are found in the links below this webpage, which I have. On the page itself, we do not consider her historicity. We do not consider her historicity. But if an African woman could have been queen in Baja, California, myth says, I won't read any further. Right there should be enough to tell you. He was honest and at least telling you. This ain't based on nothing historically, but if an African woman had been yada, 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 Queen Khalifa. Haven't you seen that on Facebook? Haven't you seen that on Instagram? Haven't you seen that on Twitter? Paul Mark Washington and his lookership and phenotypes. Let's see what else. Black statues? You're seeing this picture around, all the ones with the hair and 2,000 year of grape cluster, the one with the big breasts up here in number one, and telling you how all these things are connected and And the coins they want to show you. Here's the list of all the coins from 1 to 21 right here. I won't read the legends right now, but yeah, you've heard the spiels before and seen the pics before. Paul Mark Washington. Lookership and phenotypes. How about Black Vikings? How about Black Vikings? The African Egyptian heritage of the Vikings in African prehistoric Europe, part 1. I have the others. How about Black Vikings? Being 9,000 years old, the petrograph etching of high-powered desert boat in North Africa, and 5,000 years older than the name type of petrographic Viking boat, and blah, 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 and the mulatto girl, and these pictures, and they're all right here, and they all came from Paul Mark Washington. Black Vikings, anyone? Paul Mark Washington. That's how you got it online. That's where you saw it. How about the hair and celebrities getting put in pictures with other people to say, see, we saw Muhammad Ali in the other one. Do you know who did that? It was Paul Mark Washington, and the style that he developed, like he told you, of this mega documentation, just slapping all these images everywhere. And you happen to play the lookership game. Let's read this. Twisted Platt Caffrey from Afrigypt and Thebes to 21st century America. The San have the full nose, mouth, and woolly hair of the African. They were the first Africans. In addition, perhaps culturally, we can see something. As Africans, both the San Egyptian carpenter of the 19th century, seated Theban gentry, and he calls them T. Hughley of CNN, seen here from CNN, have the twisted plate coffer. Much has been said of the illustrious Egyptian thieves culture interchange, that the culture of both the Egyptian and Theban are identical and a mere 200 years apart, a style rarely seen in history. The world throughout reinforces the hypothesis. And apparently, whoa, my battery's dying. No, not now, not now. How did my battery die? We was plugged in. Ah, sugar. I'll start beeping now. That's all right. I don't care if it's beeping. We're going to get through it. It's going to stop eventually. It might be 10 minutes. Yep, there you go. That's all right. You'll deal with the beeping. I'll talk louder. Sorry, folks. Got to charge my phone and it makes this annoying beep. I apologize, but I'm going to keep going and we will deal with it. Hey, you ever seen this image? Some people have them as avatars even. Here's your black Mayan king. Brown skin, very full in facial features. Monarch's heads is elongated, as was the practice during the time of Tutankhamun. A Mayan relating to Tutankhamun? A diadem is worn as in Africa, and he is adorned with heavy drooping earrings. I wish I had some charge. I would take it out. I apologize. Like I said, I just try to talk louder. I apologize, humbly apologize for that. Hopefully it'll stop shortly. But this was put on the internet in 2008. How about Black Irish? How about Black Celts? That came into the computer sphere via Paul Mark Washington. The connection.
Black Irish, Black Celts. Go through my videos on my channel. My very first video I've ever done on YouTube. Black Irish. I'm beating it up, right? We still hearing about that to this day. King so-and-so was black. King so-and-so was black. The black stewards, the black fucking Plantagenets. Like, you feel me? And also, I showed you earlier, we're rooted in what? Racism, white nationalism, that whole Irish slave myth, right? So he's taking the Irish slave myth and putting blackface on it. And still, still the same root, the same origin, right? So yeah, man, we're gonna keep it going for a little bit longer.
With lookership and coins, as you can see here. How about those black Brits? Same guy. Same guy. The black Romans and the pictures are all aligned along the right here. The black Scots are picture number 11. That one hit right on cue. As you can see, the Africans in early Britain. Here's the story that Paul Mark Washington crafted. That's all over the internet. Here's the back. Oh, they got proof, and here's the proof. The proof was who? The professor of anatomy at the Cairo school. His name was Grafton Elliott Smith, who allegedly promoted and pushed these things. Huh? Black Celts? Black Vikings? Now, Paul Mark Washington is online, as you can see, and he begins to meet other people. One of them is I'll say amateur scholar named Clyde Winters. He writes, this is an email conversation between the two. Dr. Winters, I like the Olmec head you once posted that someone put your picture in and uploaded it to my own site. I think it's appropriate, though, as you are their greatest promoter, Clyde Winters, nearly in the world. It's good to see the Olmec images you posted above, along with their captions. The Olmec proliferation now has another person who is pushing it in the online world. Let's see the connections further that you may see with the introduction of this new individual who is related and conversing with Paul Mark Washington. Here was a post by Clyde Winters on November 11th. The Olmec inscriptions record the names and deeds of many political officials, religious leaders, and kings. The Olmec inscriptions indicate that each own Olmec town was ruled by either a governor or king, and there was recognized religious leaders for the entire community. The Olmec king was usually referred to as Tu. The Olmec term for governor and all this other stuff is all bunk. Clyde Winters sources himself. All the stuff that you think you know about the Olmecs is all bunk and mostly from the mind of Clyde Winters. But there'll be more on him in succeeding volumes if I don't see some changes. But let's deal with him just a bit more of his relationship, because we're dealing with just the origins a bit in Paul Mark Washington. So the descriptions are done. This is 2011. This is 10 years ago, and I have preceding ones if you still want to try me. Clyde Winters himself, you see in the corner here, Clyde Winters posting images from some of his presentations way back. Got those too. Here's more stuff that Clyde Winters is presenting about Olmecs and how it's now proliferating throughout the internet sphere. Clyde Winters, in a communication with Mark Washington, who we know, on November 7th, 2011, says, "Thanks, Mark, for the support. It was less than 10 years ago that we had very little published Olmec text. Less than 10 years ago, it's 2011, so 1991, we didn't have nothing until Clyde created it. So we could not really investigate the history of the Olmec rulers. The discovery of the Kaskazil tablet, which is nefarious, I'll give you that, is very important because it provided us with collateral text to support the name of one of the Olmec heads. It will be almost impossible to provide accurate dates for the rule of each Olmec leader depicted in the Olmec head, since the stratigraphy of the sites were hastily done because of the oil that is being taken from the area, I believe. Yet the association of the Kaskazil tablets, an area where the Olmec heads were originally found, offer us hope to gain keep insight into the legacy of the Olmec rulers represented among the giant Olmec heads. There is now, I put this in here to show communication, as you can see, and relationship between Paul Mark Johnson, and you know what he did, Washington, and Clyde Winters and their communications. But let's see further. He says, Dr. Winters, this is an impressive account of Alexander von Wolfenow and his discovery of your research, which led to collaborations and joint lectures between the two of you. What caused that budding relationship to cease? Creeping old age sidelined him? What prevented his work from going to the next level? Also, oh Lord, it's plugged in. Don't die. It's plugged in. Barry Fell was jealous because of many of the American inscriptions he translated in his books. I had deciphered and
Barry Fell, the name I read in the book. Please don't forget.
Published in the Bulletin d'Iffon years before his books were published. God darn it, this is gonna fail. If it fails on me, y'all know I'll charge it and go live again. We're gonna get through this. God, all right, just stay up there and wine. Just shut out. Barry Fell. So we have a name of Alexander von Wolfenow and a name of Barry Fell, and also Ivan Van Sertima being thrown in here. The plot thickens. Ivan Van Sertima wrote in and edited a couple of books, one of them being the African presence in early America, and they were talking about certain things. I'm not going to go through this at this time because I do want to get to this before the computer flatlines on me, but they are referencing Van Sertima. Let's see if there's a relationship to him. Let's see. There was a relationship. Oh, what happens? Mark Johnson asked Mina, what is the link of your reference to? Dr. Winters, why would Van Sertima choose Barry Fell over you? Wait a minute. So Van Sertima made a choice of going with Barry Fell, this is with the Bible archaeology guys, some of you religious folks with these pseudo stuff in the Grand Canyon and all this stuff comes from Barry Fell. Ivan Van Sertima chose to go with his line of pseudo, then Clyde Winters' brand of pseudo, and poor old Clyde got in his feelings. This is from a communication, those who are curious, March 19, 2013, between Mark and Clyde. Let's read. I don't know how Wildenau passed or what happened to his collection. Now, listen close. This is Clyde Winters. Sertima was a weak man. What? Yes. All you fans of Winters and Sertima and all that, yes. Clyde Winters called Ivan Van Sertima a weak man. I'm going to read further. He always hoped that whites would support his work. He made his name by editing great books on ancient history. He was a poor researcher, said Clyde Winters. Much of what he talked about relating to ancient history, except for his work before Columbus, he got from others. He's saying, Clyde Winters is saying Van Sertima stole his work. Somebody hating, especially me. So Clyde Winters is saying that Ivan Van Sertima stole his work from him. In 1991, he was outed as having no knowledge of ancient history that he could support by Time Magazine, Newsweek, and the New York Times. Clyde Winters throwing Ivan Van Sertima under the bus. And it was the fact that, and I have the New York Times article, the New York Times came at Barry Fell and Ivan Van Sertima. This would not have happened if Hunter and Ivan had not turned against me. I'm reading here at the bottom. To support Fell and promoted ideas they got from me but could not defend. If they would have been real scholars, they would have been able to support their work. It is a shame that Afrocentrism is attacked because non-Afrocentric researchers could not support what they thought. He's trying to carry favor even from Afrocentrics because Van Sertima and the scholars of renown threw Clyde Winters in the pseudo boo-boo box. But he had an outlet and a clapback and proliferating all of his stuff on the emerging internet social media realm. Who is Alexander von Wolfenau? This is many of those people claiming, let's see, somewhat interesting origins is the father of them. You know how people like to point at, which is totally incorrect, Melville Herskowitz being the father of Pan-Africanism? Well, friends, you are looking at one of the fathers of online pseudo Black Indian, Black Irish, Negro this, Negro that. Yes, friends, this is the father. The people are putting too much weight on Ivan Van Sertima. It wasn't Van Sertima that really was injecting it. This is the father of them. Alexander von Woldenau, a Euro-German, former German diplomat and art expert. Dr. Alexander von Wolfenau displays enlarged photo of a tiny pre-Columbian sculpture, which he says shows Egyptian characteristics.
Real quick, you know how they talk about the cheekbones? Oh, my grandma got cheekbones, she Indian. Look at his. And that's a fucking, and that's a damn German. A German buckra. Make it make sense, bro. That should be a mixture.
He has unearthed nearly 2,000 pre-Columbian heads in Mexico over a 30-year period. Von Woldenau has a controversial theory that Egyptians, Jews, and Negroes arrived in trickles before the Spanish conquest and influenced Mexican art, as we saw. This is the father, a German. This is the everything but African era. The reason that you everything but African is because of Alexander von Woldenau, your God, among others. And yes, I got the rest. What do I mean? Alexander von Woldenau sculptures offers clues to past. Excuse me. By the way, folks, curious, this is from 1977. The other one was from much earlier in the 50s because he was also a diplomat. Says, here's Henry Kissinger at Coleman, said the former German diplomat with a smile. Dr. Alexander von Wolzenau was not showing his visitor a scrapbook of pictures of German-born celebrities. Rather, he was pointing to two of the nearly 2,000 pre-Columbian heads he has unearthed in Mexico over a 30-year period. One tiny head did have a nose and hair like those of the former U.S. Secretary of State, while another was that of a woman with an Egyptian hairdo and the facial characteristics. I'm not going to read further, but you will see who they is. He talks about them having Negroid and Oriental features. It gets deeper. He did more than just talk about. It says right here, although Van Waldenau has supporters for his theory, the two most prominent are Barry Fell of Harvard University and Ivan Van Sertima of Rutgers. He's violently opposed by Mexican intellectual community. The Mexicans who pulled this stuff, and the only two people who gave it any credence was Barry Fell, who was doing his Bible archaeology in America, and Ivan Van Sertima, in his pursuits. They went to the father, and you got it from your grandfather. Now I ain't talking about grandmothers and grandfathers. This is your grandmother and grandfather that's telling you about your past. Alexander von Woldenau, German. What's the connection further? There he is, the god of the online pseudo. A Maya sculpture identified by Alexander von Woldenau as a depiction of the Jewish Star of David and a Mayan star, this relationship to now.
So when we get these nowadays, these Aboriginal Hebrews, yeah, that part. Again, in that same book I referenced, not even referenced, I went through. For real.
Jews in the Americas? From your German god, Alexander von Woldenau, is where you got that from. M. Wells Jakeman, however, interprets it as the year-bearing sign of the Mesoamerican calendar. Not done. It comes from this book, friends. Unexpected Faces, Lookership, and Phenotypes in Ancient America. Unexpected Faces in Ancient America, written by Alexander von Woldenau. Says the historical testimony of pre-Columbian artists 1500 BC to 1500 AD. This is the book. Stop pointing at Ivan Van Sertima, because the god of all of this is Alexander von Woldenau, who's the god of, hey, I'm a black Irish, black Celt, black Jew in America, black Indian, black Burma Park. That's the book. Seen these pictures before? Seen this guy here before next to the Olmec head? You've seen this online, friends. That's in that book. That's where it comes from, this connection that you've seen. It is from Alexander von Woldenau, is why so many of the babies, youngsters, and those who tune in and go online and pursue this knowledge of self online and get proliferated with these images, and no one explains to them the history of the context with some frivolous, ridiculous headlines that you then play lookership for because you get so many thrown at you, which was Mark Washington's methodology and plan, that you're playing a phenotype and lookership game the whole time.
That's a fact, yo. The lookership and phenotype game the whole damn time, yo. Shit sad.
Hey Monte, what'd you say?
Shit sad as fuck, bro. So within these last 2 hours, We talk about what we look at, what we went through, and we discuss the show. We show the origins of pseudo history, what it is and what it means and what it represents. Also with pseudo archaeology, how they're rooted in racism, white nationalism, white supremacy type job, right? The agendas that they promote, personal, political, religious. In the Indian case, what are they? Reparations for political. The personal shit is the self-hate. And within that, we deal with all these logical fallacies, confirmation bias, appeal to authority, so on and so forth, right? Gish Gallop and all type of things, right? And on top of that, boom, I just showed you the book, in history, the sort of science book, right? The fake history, fake religion type. We saw the same names that Brother Danny shot each one teach one talked about. Barry Phil, Leo Wiener, Walton Nile, he was in there. And then the other one I forgot now. 1882, I believe. But yeah, man. And so Paul Mark Washington, the government from South Carolina, 1920, moved to Philly. Then after Philly, went to Liberia. Don't forget, he's the Black Power preacher. Huey Newton went to his church to talk to him. So that whole revolution televised thing, that shit happened. They got married to a Hungarian woman, adopted the kids and whatnot. But Paul Mark Washington, we'll call him Junior, the son. They went back to Philly, right? And within that, with his little journey, he developed, I guess at this time, we gotta call it a habit of poor methodology. Because he was pushing a whole lot of pseudo information, right? Again, Leo Wiener, we always hear Van Sertima, but we never hear Leo Wiener and Vermont now, who were the daddies of this shit. Also show Blavatsky with the whole occultism and spiritualism, fake papers, that whole scam, the controversy after the Civil War. So that's what we had with it, man. I appreciate everybody. We not done yet. I got one more thing for y'all. If y'all peep, I've been, trying to upgrade and do my thing as far as the production and everything. So yeah, it's something I want to show with y'all, because Brother Vi hit it right on the head. I do got that warrior spirit, man. If y'all don't know, I got a Batala over my head, so big up, and there's aspects of a Batala. And, one is a warrior aspect, so, shout out to that. For real. Shout out to the ancestors. Shout out to Oyotunji. Shout out to everybody, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna share this real quick, and y'all definitely already know y'all gonna enjoy. So yeah.
Years after you get free, you still getting fucked out of job and shot at by police. You see what I'm saying? This guy gets it. I like him. He's getting angry. Angry is good. Angry gets shit done. You shed tears for Kumpe and Nancy, and here he is telling you are staring down the barrel of 300 years of subjugation, racist bullshit, and heart disease. He is telling you there is one goddamn reason you shouldn't go up there right now and slit the throats of every last one of these Dutch motherfuckers and set fire to this ship.
Mana, ubomele ga boko, nini le ga wo.
You already dead, asshole. at least die a sacrifice for something worthwhile. Let the motherfucker burn. Let it all burn.
Yeah, man. That's it. That's it. That's how I'm rocking. That's how I'm always give it up. Unapologetic. I'm about my ancestors. I'm about my history. I'm always talk about the greatness we have from West Africa. Again, I don't mention the note culture. I'm always mention that. Mention the ironwork. Mention the blacksmithing. Mention the sculpture, the terracottas, all that. You feel me? You gonna talk about Mali, Ghana, Songhai. You feel me? Like that's how I'm rocking, man. I don't go for none of the disrespect to the ancestors at all whatsoever. Whatsoever. You got people saying Harriet Tubman never existed. Denmark VC's existence is now in question for some people. Right? And at the same time, I'm trying to be cordial and cool and everything, but people want to throw rocks and hide their hand on some weird shit. And I don't get it, bro. They COINTELPRO to me. I'm good. I just gotta move how I'm gonna move. That's why the information over here always, always, always gonna be A1. Always gonna be A1. I'm tapped in, certified, I'm stamped. Y'all gonna see the ones that already know. Well, that's why they be over here, you feel me? Whether it's one or three or four or whatever. It's always some real ones, and I'm not tripping over the numbers. I just want the information out. But with that being said, man, y'all share, man. Help the channel grow. You growing together. See each one, teach one. Start where you stand. You feel me? OBP 804. Shout out to the corridor. We out.